earth does that mean?
I don't know. Mr. Wentworth just told me to come in here and say that there was trouble at the mill, that's all. I didn't expect a kind of Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Amongst our weaponry are such elements as fierce... I'll come in again.
Say what you will about how many times you've seen them, plot twists are an art in themselves. It actually takes a great amount of storytelling skills to convince people to go in one direction as a distraction to develop something completely unexpected to later reveal what's actually been going on this whole time, changing the entire narrative and what needs to be done altogether. It could be something about the main character, a moment that happened before, or even something about the whole place that the story is set in. But if there is one way that the trope loves to do when presenting a plot twist, it's with villains. And what better way to make them more memorable than making them literally animated? But again, it takes some good talent to make them work, and even in animation, sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're not. But while many have complained about the bad ones and how predictable they can be, why not take the time to honor the good ones? The villains that effectively not made us see them coming, and that their reveal made us all go,
Oh my god.
Now for this top 10, there are two factors for a villain to make it on this list. How good and unexpected was the twist that they were actually the villain, which should happen by at least the second half of the picture, and how threatening and dangerous they have become afterwards, or from what was already been established. Oh, and one more thing. I think it is safe to say that there will be major spoilers on the movies I'll be talking about, so watch at your own risk. I'm Animat, and these are the top 10 best twist villains in an animated film. As it is a list dedicated to animated villains, why not start this off with a franchise that's all about animated villains, Despicable Me. Across the movies, they presented all kinds of villains. Good villains, bad villains, big villains, small villains, retro villains, themed villains, and for the second film, a plot twist villain.
You have not lost your touch, my friend.
Aha! I knew it! You are El Macho!
That's right!
There are very few people in the history of mankind who could earn the title of being macho, and El Macho certainly lived up to his name, drinking poison like it's water and having unparalleled strength to get whatever he wants. Even his alleged death is the most epic way that someone could go.
Riding a shark with 250 pounds of dynamite strapped to his chest into the mouth of an active volcano.
But as it turns out, that was only a ruse for a temporary retirement, where Eduardo later became a family man and opened his own Mexican restaurant at the Paradise Mall called Salsa and Salsa. However, the El Macho inside him never died out, and has secretly planned to make his ultimate comeback with his army of Gru's minions that were modified with the PX-41 serum, which turned them into indestructible killing machines. Okay, in all seriousness though, I know that El Macho is not really that great of a twist villain. The movie itself kind of makes it predictable of the fact that he's the only one in the mall with a villainous backstory, and the movie tries to avert the notion that it might be him by having Gru accuse Eduardo for all the wrong reasons with how Margot started to date his son. So why is he even here? Honestly, out of all the twist villains on this list, even for the ones that didn't make it, El Macho is the only one that never takes himself seriously. You'll see as the list goes on, after the twist villains reveal themselves, they generally become a lot grimmer and threatening towards the protagonist to show that they're not playing around anymore. El Macho, on the other hand, is constantly comical from when we first meet him at the bakery to the end when he becomes a giant purple hairy monster. He knows he's in a Despicable Me movie, so he hams it up every time he's on screen for the sake of comedy, over-exaggerating his macho-ness during his villainous prime, being proudly Mexican and mastering the country's cuisine and dance, and even before he has his ravenously funny modified minions, he has a chicken as his security.
Get it off of me! Get it off of me!
After researching all the different candidates for this list and seeing them do the same song and dance number, it's actually refreshing to see one try something a little different with the twist villain formula. After all, this is all about animated villains, so why not have one that acknowledges that he's a cartoon?
So, are you in?
Woohoo!
You know who used to love making twist villains? Disney! Back in the 2010s, both Disney and Pixar had a phase where they just couldn't get enough turning their new batch of villains into plot twists to spice up their stories. I'll give them credit that they did start out well, so well in fact that we may see some of them later, wink. But then they just keep on going for several years to the point where people started to tell them, okay Disney, it's been fun, but let's just give that a break and Disney, what are you doing? Why are you still Disney? Why? Just stop! But even if some may first point out to the more poorly executed ones, most of them are actually hits than they are misses. Take, for instance, Pixar's Coco, where the movie spends most of his time to have Miguel enter the land of the dead just so he could reunite with the man who is his late great-great-grandfather. Or so Miguel thinks.
Papa Ernesto, my blessing?
Security? Take care of Miguel. He'll be extending his stay.
What?
Jumping from one Benjamin Bratt animated twist villain to the next, Ernesto de la Cruz has often been praised for having one of the best plot twists in a Pixar film. That's because one of the feature's great strengths is how it hypes its audience for the moment to see Miguel meet his longtime idol and have his blessing to play music. To get familiar with Miguel, his family, and his passion in order to get emotionally invested in his journey across the land of the dead so that it could pay off for him to truly become a musician. However, as a shock that de la Cruz would rather let Miguel permanently stay among the dead, it also does make sense why he did so. It is logical to think that maybe Miguel and Ernesto are related. I mean, with the kind of star he is, he probably did have a few babies he never knew about. But as a musical sensation, he values his fame and reputation more than anything else. And even if Miguel was his actual descendant, he would still take him down for the sake of maintaining his status and hide the truth about the origins of his songs.
Success doesn't come for free, Miguel. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to seize your moment.
Now, you might be wondering, with a twist as effective as Ernesto's, why isn't he higher on the list? Well, it is true that he does have a great reveal, but following afterwards, then what? The one big downside to de la Cruz is that after he presents his true self, he barely does much as a villain, mostly letting his security do the dirty work for him, which they're not really that effective in the first place, and on his own, he just becomes the cliched never meet your heroes type of jerk character with the typical way of taking him down of exposing that he's a fraud. In a way, he's both one of the best and the worst aspect of Coco, where the movie crafts an amazing reveal to show who de la Cruz really is, but doesn't do much afterwards to use him as a villain. But at least for that time, de la Cruz had his starring moment to amaze people that he is a villain as much as the songs he stole charmed them during his lifetime.
I know you understand.
Of course, with an animation list like this, it would be hard to imagine without one of the biggest animated films of all time, Frozen. Even by Disney standards, this was a rare animated phenomenon that had millions, if not billions of fans all around the world fall in love with this updated take on Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. And while many may recall the moment when they first met the characters or first heard the songs, they may also recall the first first time they felt betrayed by the man they thought to be the one true love.
Oh, Anna. If only there was someone out there who loved you.
Technically, Hans has received criticism over the years of being a bit over the top with his presentation. And yeah, even I could see how he can be like El Macho, but without the self-awareness of how goofy he can act.
You're no match for Elsa.
No, you're no match for Elsa. I, on the other hand, am the hero who is going to save Arendelle from destruction.
Then I will work my way up to ruling you all with my fist! You, obey the fist!
But even at that, I'll give him credit that he does put in more effort at being a villain than Ernesto de la Cruz. However, what does make him a viable villain is that the more you think about it, the more you realize how evil of a human being Hans truly is. In a way, he's like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, but with more brain than brawn. He's a master manipulator who plays with women's hearts in order to get what he wants, and when he saw one of the princesses of Arendelle all love-struck and clueless of how the real world works, he sees it as the perfect shortcut to be the new king. I mean, who else in the kingdom would be willing to marry someone on the first day they've met other than someone who's been isolated and alone for most of their lives? And even when he's playing the role of Anna's fiancé, there are subtle clues of his true intentions in the form of behavior that can be found in actual abusive relationships.
One day she just shut me out, and I never knew why.
I would never shut you out.
I'm the one that needs to go after her.
What?
Yes.
Bring me my horse, please.
Anna, no, it's too dangerous. Are you sure you can trust her? I don't want you getting hurt.
While it can be agreed that Hans's delivery can use a bit of work, the movie does well in covering his intentions by being itself. Think about it. This is an animated fairy tale musical featuring a talking snowman and a girl with ice powers, so while he can be exaggerated, it is not necessarily out of place for a movie that demands its viewers to suspend their disbelief. However, if there is one thing that is more shocking than Hans's betrayal, it's the fact that Anna immediately hooked up with Kristoff afterwards. I mean, she nearly died because some guy manipulated her in believing that someone loved her. I don't think anyone would have any issue if she decided to swear off men after that. By taking an old Disney trope and flipping it on its head, there is no better argument against the term love at first sight than Hans.
You won't get away with this.
Oh, I already have.
Before Ernesto de la Cruz, before Hans, before there was any Disney or Pixar animated film that had a twist villain, there was Toy Story 2. In terms of a bad guy, you'd think it would be the same as the first, where Al is the antagonistic human that wants to sell Woody and his collection to a museum in Japan. However, as Woody ultimately changes his mind about going there and convinces the other Roundup toys to come with him at Andy's, one of them is actually a lot keener to stick with the program.
I tried reasoning with you, Woody, but you keep forcing me to take extreme measures.
Remember in the first film how Andy went through that transition phase of being all about cowboys to being all about space? Imagine how that felt to an unsold Western-themed toy right after the launch of Sputnik, suddenly feeling unwanted after seeing thousands of toys being sold instead of him across the years. For Stinky Pete, that Japanese museum is like his main purpose to live, and in a way, better than being bought off the store. Why be beloved by just one kid who will mess you up when you could just stay in perfect condition and be adored by hundreds of people every day? And now with Woody added to Al's collection, the prospector finally has his ticket to fulfill his purpose. So when the cowboy tells the crew to ditch that plan and head to Andy's instead, do you think he'll be cool with letting the new guy take down his reason to live?
Spending a lifetime on a dime store shelf watching every other toy be sold. Well, finally my waiting has paid off, and no hand-me-down cowboy doll is gonna mess it up for me now!
And once he became fully committed to go to Japan, he would stop at nothing to make it happen, even ruining his mint-condition reputation by getting out of the box. But his attitude wouldn't live up to his name until the airport scene, where he just lets it all out and attack anyone in his way, even threatened to literally tear Woody into pieces.
Your choice, Woody. You can go to Japan together or in pieces. If he fixed you once, he can fix you again. Now get in the box! Never!
If there is one downside to comment on the Prospector, is that his time as a villain is very short-lived. Yes, he can be quite intimidating, especially at the airport, but that really did not last long as the toys were pretty quick to take him down. So as threatening as he can be at his worst, he's not that hard to deal with. But for someone who went from being a kind father figure of the Woody's Roundup gang to the frustrated, unwanted toy that's forcing his way to fulfill his purpose, Stinky Pete is the rudenest, tootinest twist villain in the Wild Wild West.
Whatever. I've always hated those upstart space toys.
Here's a twist for this spot. It's a tie! Coming from two beloved animated features, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Batman Mask of the Phantasm. The reason why they share the same spot is because of how they have some very strong similarities, even if the biggest difference is that one is from Marvel and the other is from DC. Of their respective companies, they both feature one of, if not their most popular superhero, they're both their best animated feature, and they both have twist villains, where one turns out to be an uncle that feels like a real father.
I'll find them.
You know me, sir. I don't ever quit.
And the other is a long-lost love.
They took everything, Bruce. My dad, my life, you.
Interestingly enough, both Aaron Davis and Andrea Beaumont are also quite similar in their respective roles. The way that both protagonists and the audience get invested in their characters before their reveal, presented as a caring and positive influence in the protagonist's lives. Rather it be Aaron treating Miles like the son he never had when the kid doesn't really have a great connection with his real dad, or Andrea becoming Bruce Wayne's girlfriend, finally giving him an opportunity to be happy with his life.
No. Like, hey.
Hey.
No. Hey. Hey. You sure you my nephew, man?
I always felt like I'd thrown you a curveball, like you never knew what to do with me because I wasn't in the plan.
You are now. I'm changing the plan.
Also, as their alter egos, they appear as serious threats with the potential to kill their leads, with Prowler as a top hunter with sharp claws who is always hot on Miles' trail, and the Phantasm who manages to always kill her target and have the smoke ability to teleport in an instant. And by the time that they have to reveal themselves to the ones they love, not only is there an element of shock that it was them all along, but also heartbreaking for what it means for the main characters, knowing that their dynamic will forever change because they now know what their secret identities are. That is, if it weren't for the fact that it was the last time that they would ever see them again.
No. One way or another, it ends tonight. Goodbye, my love.
However, as great as both twist villains are, they also share a similar issue that's preventing them to be higher on this list. Technically, they're not really the main villains of their films. Yes, Prowler is one of the more prominent antagonists of Spider-Verse, but he's just one of the many henchmen working for Kingpin. And as for Phantasm, she's more of a chaotic vigilante who only wants to kill mafia bosses as revenge for them murdering her father. So while they do count as twist villains, they don't become the biggest obstacle that the heroes must stop in the end. But even with that shortcoming, it doesn't change how they are both amazing characters with a heartbreaking twist of their secret identity in two of the best animated superhero films.
You're the best of all of us, Mom. You're on your way. Just keep going. Moving
up to the next spot on the list, we have, well, up. A movie that already puts its main character, Carl Fredricksen, in a crazy situation. Literally fly his home to Paradise Falls. That alone comes with an insane amount of life-threatening obstacles, including the weather, potential wildlife, and making sure that nothing is in the way of the balloons so that they don't pop. It doesn't need a villain to make things any more difficult to stop him from making the dream of his late wife come true. And yet, the feature adds one anyway in the form of Carl's childhood hero.
Wait, are you Charles Muntz?
Yes?
The Charles Muntz?
Adventures out there.
I'll just say right now that Charles Muntz doesn't have the best reveal as a twist villain. From the moment Carl and Russell find out that Kevin was actually the bird he's looking for, the audience only had time to register in their heads that he was the guy in the opening that Carl idolized as a kid, and that it seems like now he'll be playing a bigger role. But while his reveal may be weaker than some of the other Pixar villains like Stinky Pete or Ernesto de la Cruz, Charles Muntz more than makes up for it with his obsession. An obsession in which drove him to levels of insanity that would even make Captain Ahab concerned of his mental health. For almost his entire life, Muntz had been unsuccessfully searching for this one tropical bird that science has yet to discover. Sure, he's got the skeleton of one, but during his prime, people thought it was a hoax and had his reputation ruined for it, thus making a vow to go to South America and not return until he got the bird to prove that he wasn't lying.
Humiliated, Muntz vows a return to Paradise Falls and promises to capture the beast alive.
I promise to capture the beast alive. And I will not come back until I do.
However, that promise was made several decades ago, and the more you think about how long he spent his time just to search for this one bird, the more you realize how insane he has become. Seriously, his insanity is actually more frightening than his army of dogs. The fact that he is so disconnected from the real world and completely oblivious to how long his search has been just to capture this one animal and would do whatever it takes to achieve his goal, even killing whoever enters his territory in fear of competition.
A surveyor making a map. A botanist cataloging plants. An old man taking his house to Paradise Falls.
And the more desperate he is, the deadlier he becomes, risking everything to reclaim the glory he once had. In a way, Miguel was lucky to face an enemy he once looked up to that already had everything he wanted, because Carl's former hero turned out to be a desperate and threateningly insane villain.
Any last words, Fredricksen? Come on, spit it out!
Back when the movie was released, Wreck-It Ralph turned out to be a great new addition to the Disney animation library, but the reasons why were a surprise to audiences. People came in excitedly to see all the video game cameos, but they end up receiving a heartfelt story of a bad guy that wants to be good and the friendship he made with a glitchy outcast. I don't think anyone expected that from a movie set in a video game world. You want to know what else people didn't expect? Who King Candy actually is.
What the? Who are you?
I'm Turbo, the greatest racer ever!
Technically, it is true that the movie constantly puts in warning labels about King Candy, that he shouldn't be trusted and that he has dark intentions that have yet to be revealed. But what it didn't say is that he's not even King Candy in the first place. He's actually an old racing game character who refused to be replaced and ended up causing serious damage, thus becoming an infamous term often used in the arcade world.
You can't mess with the program, Ralph.
You're not going turbo, are you?
Turbo? No, I'm not going turbo. Come on, guys.
And yet, the movie does a great job at hiding his true identity because it has his audience preoccupied with something else. Even after the origin story, people just pass off Turbo as just an in-world term and get emotionally invested over the bond of Ralph and Vanellope. Sure, some have criticized that Turbo's reveal is kind of cliched by reusing the typical twist villain formula, But it's the execution of the film that helps fuel the shock value and how it fooled its viewers in thinking that maybe the one thing that will be worse than King Candy in the big race is the side bugs from Hero's Duty. But nope, like every final boss in the game, you can't just beat him once and call it a win.
Welcome to the boss level! Turbo! Because of you, Ralph, I'm now the most powerful virus in the arcade!
Although this was more unintentional on Turbo's part, it did help raise the stakes during the climax where not only is it a lot harder for the girl to win the race, but also the whole Sugar Rush game is crashing down and could leave both Ralph and Vanellope in peril. And I mean, if you're gonna have an ultimate form in a gaming world, why not fuse yourself with a giant bug to become more menacing than just a racer in the wrong game? With an unexpected surprise of his true identity and becoming a real threat afterwards, King Candy is what happens when a twist villain has gone turbo.
I should thank you, but it'd be more fun to kill you.
Now for this twist villain, you won't find them in this realm of existence. That is why we gotta go right through this door. When stepping into the other world in Coraline, it dazzled both viewers and Coraline herself with how perfectly enchanting everything seems compared to the real world. However, you don't need a talking cat to tell you that everything there is a little too perfect. You know that there is something nefarious behind all the spectacles. And then, just when it seems like we're getting to the bottom of this, it counts to 3 to reveal something much worse than anyone could ever expect.
1, 2,
3! What are you doing?
Now, before I continue, I understand that some may argue that calling the Beldam, or the other mother, a twist villain is kind of a stretch, especially when we have the cat always popping up to tell Coraline, "Yo girl, other mother kinda sus, not gonna lie." In a way, the movie keeps telling the audience to keep on the lookout for the other mother because she might be the root of what is wrong with this world, and even more than what Wreck-It Ralph did with King Candy. But, to be fair, did anyone expect that she would morph into Cruella de Vil and cause the film's tone to take a complete shift into a dark direction? And another thing, do you know how hard it is to find non-Disney animated twist villains that are actually good? Like, half of the time making this was just to look for an animated movie not from either Disney or Pixar that even has a twist villain in the first place. Anyways, back to the Beldam. While it may be debatable if her reveal was even a twist, there is no denying that she is one of the most intimidating villains in an animated feature. In a way, she functions like a spider. In fact, her final form is a lot like a spider, where she lures unhappy children to a more ideal world and make them sew buttons in their eyes to trap their souls in her realm.
Gave all that we asked, yet we still wanted more. So we let her sew the buttons.
But what makes her completely frightening, even more than when she becomes part spider, part creepy cracked porcelain doll, is that she is the master of the other world. It's not just her that becomes evil, but also the environment around Coraline is now out to get her, and the other people become monsters that are after her soul. I know it's probably questionable if she counts as a twist villain, which is why I didn't place her at number 1, but among all the candidates here, she is the most manipulative and terrifying animated villain that is hard not to include her on this list. At least for the sake of my soul.
Now, you're going to stay here forever.
Okay, I am aware that a good chunk of villains on this list are from Disney and Pixar. Now, it is true that most of the twist villains from animated features are from them, but I did try my best to not fill this up with just Disney villains, to give others a chance to have their shocking twists in the spotlight, which is also why I did that tie with Aaron Davis and Andrea Beaumont. However, I promise that this will be the last Disney edition. But this is not just any Disney twist villain. This is the one from Monsters, Inc. As a Pixar classic, this is one of the movies that set a new standard in animation as the medium began making their mainstream transition to CGI. Who couldn't forget the creative and colorful world of Monstropolis, the comedic antics of Mike Wazowski, or even the touching bond between Sully and Boo? But no matter how many times fans watch this movie, they always find themselves shocked at who the true villain actually is.
I know. It's yours.
What makes the matter of Mr. Waternoose being a villain so surprising is how the feature masterfully hides any indication that he's up to no good. And their secret is that they already set up an entire movie that doesn't seem like there would be a twist villain. There is the story of two monsters who have to return a little human girl back to her home. The emotional focus is entirely on Sully and that little girl, and it already established a villain with its own evil agenda with Randall. And yet, even if it looks like the kind of film that wouldn't have or even need a twist villain, making Mr. Waternoose a bad guy makes perfect sense. He already mentioned how the business of Monsters, Inc. was failing and what the company means to him while having a nice chat with Sully.
James, this company's been in my family for 3 generations. I would do anything to keep it from going under.
Well, so would I, sir.
Not only that, but another subtle clue was that Randall never really revealed his true intentions. Even when he was about to demonstrate his Scream extractor, he only said that he didn't care about the scare record, was about to revolutionize the scare industry, and that's it.
You still think this is about that stupid scare record? I am about to revolutionize the scaring industry, and when I do, even the great James P. Sullivan is going to be working for me.
It's thanks to the movie's keen sense of subtlety that makes Waternoose's reveal so shocking, yet perfectly understandable because he's the one that cares about the company the most, even if it means to stop Mike and Sully from returning Boo back to her home in order to save it. And once the duo return from the Himalayas, that's when Waternoose reminds everyone that, like everyone in Monstropolis, he is a monster, going from a kind old man that's easily approachable to the angry spider-like crab creature who can easily tear anyone apart. Hearing that there is corruption happening in a major corporation wouldn't really faze anyone. But with the way the movie surprised people with Monsters, Inc.'s dark secret, it's no wonder why many consider Waternoose to be Disney's greatest example of a twist villain.
Of course, without your help, I never would have known that this went all the way up to Waternoose.
And the #1 animated twist villain is... me, because I'm putting Lady X from Food Fight in the #1 spot! Nah, I'm just kidding. The real #1 animated twist villain can be found in Perfect Blue. And by the way, watch out because this is about to get sexual and bloody. Unlike Monsters, Inc., where the movie perfectly covers its villain with a complete narrative, Perfect Blue hides its antagonist by constantly messing with its viewer's mind. It keeps teasing that something's up and that someone's been killing these people, but you have no idea if it's either Mima Kirigoe, who's been progressively mentally unstable, or her creepy stalker who calls himself Me-Mania. Throughout the film, it presents the perspective of Mima as her pursuit of being an actress is mentally taking a toll on her to the point that it becomes hard to distinguish what is real and what is a scenario fabricated in her head. It wouldn't be until she was nearly at the end of her rope that the movie decided to reveal who is the most insane person. It's not Mima, and it's not even her stalker, but rather, the one who was always the closest to her.
ほら、見て見て、新しい衣装なんだ。明日のイベントで着るのよ。いいでしょう、私にぴったり。
Like I said before, the movie does a great job in covering Rumi Hidaka's tracks. What Mima had to go through in order to transition from being a pop idol to an actress is very difficult, scarring even. I mean, she tried to go 180 on her image by moving away from singing cute love songs so she could immediately make it on screen and do everything for the camera, where she takes it all off and be involved in scenes where, she gets taken advantage of.
じゃあ続いてレイプシー。
はい、本番参ります。テイクワン。はい、参りました。
It's obviously a controversial move for her career, and not everyone would approve of her new direction. But among everyone in her circle, her manager Rumi is the most vocal in being opposed of having Mima do these things. That is the only clue the movie provided of her insanity, yet that's all it needed to explain what made her completely lose her mind. Because she's so attached to Mima's pop image, Rumi inevitably decided to become that, as the real Mima is distancing her career from that further than Rumi's eyes are from one another. In fact, she's the one that runs the website that claims it's by Mima and been working with Meme Mania to preserve that clean image that both play a significant role in corrupting Mima's mentality. And the more she becomes that R-rated actress that bears it all, the more Rumi gets desperate to get rid of those that are destroying that pop image by brutally killing them, leading up to the climax where she goes after the one who is the most responsible for ruining Mima's clean reputation, Mima herself. Not only did the movie do such an amazing job at building up her twist by constantly questioning Mima's sanity, but it also paid off afterwards by presenting Rumi as a complete psychopath and fully dangerous, which led to Mima in a matter of life and death with an intense chase scene. She is the ultimate combination of surprise and threat, and that is what makes her the greatest twist villain in an animated film. Bet you didn't see that coming, huh?
Did not see that coming.